Have you ever had someone validate you and it made you feel worse? Like they say, that makes sense, and your body tightens, you get irritated, or you want to argue. That reaction isn't random. It's your brain protecting you from something. In this video, we'll explain the real reasons why validation can feel unsafe, shame control, and debt, and what to do in the moment. All right. Why would someone feel unsafe when they're being validated?
That's a really interesting question. Sometimes people can feel unsafe when they're being validated because validation can feel very vulnerable. If someone's used to having their feelings dismissed, or if they've had experiences where opening up led to judgment or even conflict, suddenly being validated can feel a little unsettling. It's like, wait, is this safe? Is this real? So it's a kind of emotional discomfort with receiving that acceptance when they're not used to it.
Okay, so it's mostly because they're not used to it and they feel, what might they feel like when the validation actually happens, and why does their brain not like say this is safe when they're getting something that they want?
Yeah, exactly. So when validation actually happens, someone might feel a mix of relief and anxiety at the same time. It's like part of them really wants that acceptance, but another part is almost on high alert because it's unfamiliar territory. So the brain might not immediately register it as safe because it's almost like it's waiting for the other shoe to drop. If someone's been in situations where their feelings were invalidated or they've been hurt after opening up, their brain kind of learns to be cautious. It's basically a protective mechanism. So even though they're getting something they want, validation, their brain is still a bit wary and needs time to trust that it's truly safe.
Okay, so it's almost like their brain doesn't trust that the person's going to turn around right after they gave this, validating remark and, say something, negative to hurt them, basically. So, does that happen a lot in these types of people where they have histories of, getting validating comments and then, the person turns around and changes up on them right away?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really common pattern. If someone has a history of experiencing that kind of flip where they get a validating or supportive comment and then later it turns into criticism or some kind of letdown, their brain kind of starts to anticipate that pattern. So it does happen a lot with people who have those past experiences. They might just feel like, okay, when is this going to change? When is the other shoe going to drop? And it just takes them a bit more time to really trust that the validation is genuine and stable.
And what might the person do when their brain doesn't really trust the validation that this other person is giving? How might that manifest in a way that the person that is giving the validation notices, and in a sense, it becomes a self-sabotage?
Yeah. So, what can happen is the person who's feeling a little wary of the validation might start to put up walls or distance themselves. Even though they want to trust it, they might act a little reserved or even second guess the person giving the validation. The person offering the validation might notice that and think, hey, I'm just trying to be supportive, but it seems like you're pulling away. So it can become a bit of a self sabotage loop where the person who's feeling unsure unintentionally creates distance, and then the person who's trying to be validating might feel a little confused or even discouraged. It really just takes some patience and open communication to break that cycle.
And when the person who's trying to be validating feels confused or discouraged in that interaction, is it true that they typically might, stop giving that validation? So, in that self-sabotage kind of way.
Yeah, that's definitely something that can happen. If the person who's trying to be validating feels like their efforts aren't really landing, or they're met with distance or hesitation, they might get discouraged and feel like, well, maybe I should just stop trying because it doesn't seem to be helping. And that can unfortunately reinforce the other person's fear that validation isn't reliable. So it can kind of become a cycle, and it's really all about building that trust and keeping the lines of communication open so both people understand what's going on.
Yeah, and I see this a lot in life in general because typically, in most interactions between people, there's not a lot of glue. Unless they're family, unless they're blood, there's not a lot of glue. And a person that gives validation to someone without a lot of glue sticking them together, and they don't get, a good response, they feel discouraged. More times than not, it leads to the dissolution of the relationship, does it not?
Yeah, you're spot on. In a lot of everyday relationships, especially if they're not super close or there's not that kind of built-in glue like family or a really long-standing friendship, it can be easy for that discouragement to just kind of lead to the relationship fizzling out. Because if someone feels like, hey, I'm putting in this effort, I'm trying to be supportive, and it's not really being received well, they might just kind of slowly step back. And then the relationship can sort of dissolve because there isn't that strong foundation keeping them together. So it definitely can lead to that kind of outcome if there's not that deeper bond or that open communication.
Yeah, it's just a sad situation because a lot of people take things personally, like when someone, you know, might not react in the way you expect when you give them that validation. The person who gave it can oftentimes take it personally and think, oh, they don't like me, or they're just weird, and then it adds like this little bit of anger or tension to the relationship that it's it's just kind of it makes things so complicated. And what do you think is the best thing you could do to try and end that for people that are going through that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It does get really complicated and it's easy for people to take it personally. I think one of the best things that can help is just having a little bit of open communication about it. If both people can acknowledge, hey, I notice this is how I feel when I try to validate you, or this is how I feel when I'm getting validated, and just talk about those feelings, it can really break down that tension. So I think the biggest thing is just encouraging a bit of honest conversation about those feelings, reassuring each other that it's not personal, and just giving it time. That can really help ease that tension and keep the relationship from fizzling out.
Yeah, that makes sense. Just open communication about how you're feeling is helpful for a lot of different things, including this. So, I want to jump into one more thing before I let you go. And that question is, why can validation feel like I'm being seen too clearly, like I'm exposed? And what does that reaction usually protect? And also tell me about this kind of validation debt that people experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's another great angle on it. Sometimes validation can feel a bit like someone's shining a light right on your inner world. And if you're not used to that or it feels too intense, it can feel like you're being exposed. It's almost like, whoa, they really see me right now. And that can be a little uncomfortable. That reaction usually protects a person's sense of safety or privacy. If you're used to guarding your feelings, then having someone really validate you can feel a bit like being emotionally naked. And that's not always easy. But the good news is that kind of validation where you feel truly seen is actually really powerful for building trust and deeper connections. It just takes a little time to get comfortable with it. So, in short, that kind of validation is all about making someone feel deeply understood, and it's a powerful but sometimes vulnerable experience.
I see, I see. Okay. And what's the debt question, the validation debt?
The $1 million question about validation. Basically, that question is something like, is it safe for me to really be seen and known? It's that core question that someone might not say out loud, but they feel underneath. And that's the question that kind of drives that feeling of exposure. If the answer is yes, over time, they start to feel safer and more comfortable with that validation. So that's really the heart of it.
Ah, okay. Well, I meant more like debt in the sense that someone's giving you validation, and now some people might feel, like, oh, this is a contract, I owe them, that type of thing, just naturally, because that's how they experienced it growing up.
Oh, got it. Yeah, that That makes a lot of sense. So sometimes people can feel like validation comes with a sort of invisible debt. Like if someone sees them and validates them, now they owe that person something in return. And that can happen especially if they grew up in an environment where emotional support always came with strings attached. So that feeling of debt can make validation feel a bit transactional. Like, oh, if they're giving me this, now I have to give something back. And that can add another layer of discomfort. But really, it's about realizing that healthy validation doesn't come with those strings. It's just a gift of understanding, not a contract. So once people can see that, it helps them feel a little less like they owe anything in return.
That's great. That's great. Okay. Tell the viewers bye. Tell them like, subscribe, and comment down below the questions I should ask you next.
Absolutely. So, to everyone watching, thanks so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this, definitely hit like, subscribe, and of course, drop a comment down below with the next questions you want me to answer. Can't wait to hear from you all, and I'll catch you next time.